Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and next to me is
Terry Yoffe, and we are coaches creating change. And I have to say, Laurie, just to start out, when we talked about this a couple of years ago, we did it specifically for doing a presentation, if you
yes,
remember.
I do, I do.
And what we did is, I think, has been so great from my perspective, of course,
Of course.
that were able to kind of take ideas, thought-provoking ideas, thinking, and kind of put it out in the world. So this has been a great collaboration that I have
I
just,
agree. I agree 100%. And what's really fun about it, and that's what's really fun about coaching too, is that we're putting out concepts and we think we know what we're talking about, but we're also open to learning every
right,
time. It's always something that we learn, and that's the beauty of coaching. You have a profession where you can't help, but you keep growing. It's just so exciting. Yeah.
exactly.
And what's happened here now is not only are we making changes and dealing with changes, it's now ICF has upgraded their whole philosophy. They've created different families. We'll be talking about that in another session. But what they've done is they've upgraded the core competencies.
Hmm.
So Terry and I, we did a whole series on that. I think it was it 2 years ago? I
Yeah.
think it was,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And we said, okay, well, let's go back in and do some of the new core competencies now. And so we're just going to take them as they come. So the first one is ethics. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you the ICF's concept of ethics, their overview, and then Terry will give you the competency. And then we're going to tell you how this pops up in life and how do you guide yourself with it. It's not just for coaches, it's for everybody. But the ICF is defining ethics as guided moral principles underlying how coaches behave congruent with ICF's core values of integrity, excellence, collaboration, and respect. So that sounds good, but that's so big. So what is the first core competency? I know they're calling it foundation, I think.
Yeah. So the first core competency is foundation,
Mhm.
which under the second line is demonstrates ethical practice. So the definition, excuse me, is understands and consistently applies coaching ethics and standards of coaching. So it's about all around being ethical, and ethical is come also is our core values. How do we approach trust, authenticity, respect? Um, so that's, I think, fits into this whole idea of really setting the foundation. And ironically, when I work with a client, the foundation for them is their core values. What's most important for them? And then you build on that.
I agree. I think that's a great way to start with values. And let me just say, I served for a couple of years on ICF Global's Ethics and Standards Committee, and there was never a solution. There was always problems. There was always conversation. But there is never a yes, this is absolutely right, and no, this is absolutely wrong. It doesn't exist. I won't say it's individually defined, but each person has their own definition of right and wrong. And I think that's it's easy to say, okay, as a coach, I'm going to do this, this, and this. As an individual, that might be even harder. But I think you have to have a core value that you keep reverting back to and just go, this is my, this is my guideline. And be open to to changing if indeed you find that you could expand it or decrease it, whatever. But there to think that, oh, we're going to come out of this with the answer. We're not. It's
No,
not going to happen. It just never did for 2 years.
and you kind of brought something up that really resonated, was core values, being ethical. Um, you know, it's how far do you go in the boundary of being ethical and having core values when you're met with choices
Mhm.
that might color a little bit out of the lines, yet still feel you're being ethical and doing the right thing and adhering to your core values, if that makes sense.
It just creates more of a what do you do? What do you do? Which is ethics, and I think that's the crazy part of it. But you have to give a profession credit when they have a whole ethical standard component, that it's like, okay, we really want to be as ethical as possible. And ICF has some guidelines for coaches, and I guess it would apply, but it's like complete engagement with and commitment to the profession, uphold the high standards in a manner that reflects positively on the profession, fully present, and just recognize and abide by the laws and regulations, not only ethics, but now that we've become global, it's like you got to know what's going on in each country, what's acceptable in each country, provide a safe space and embrace diversity. And this is their big one: embrace diversity and inclusion.
Mhm.
So
That
that they're putting all that under ethics, which I find interesting and makes you a little proud. It's like, okay, they really thought about this. So I have I don't know if you have one, but I have one for business, but I also have one for a personal situation. And I don't know, I'm going to give it to you and see what
right.
you've done, because I don't know. I was conducting I was part of a 3-day training, and it was a coaching thing, and it was where people were broken off into groups where they could coach each other. And then you could do a debrief and people share and everything. And there was a group of two, and one was no, I'm going to say an elderly gentleman from a Middle Eastern country, and one was a young white female. And at the end, when they had been coaching, I don't know what they've been coaching about, but the female just shared with the whole group. She said, I couldn't go any further because I so disagreed with what he had to say. And it was just against my moral background and everything. And the guy just sat there, I don't know. And so the lead trainer put it off and said, okay, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. They never did. And I really wanted to hear. It's like, who was right and who was wrong there? Where do your personal values come in? And how is that included in the coaching ethics guidelines? I never got the answer. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'd love to hear them if you do.
Uh, um, as coaches, we are trained and taught that in order to work with someone, a client, a coachee, a client, it's putting your own, I guess, core values.
Mhm.
Perhaps I'm kind of making this up, right? On the back burner, to be open to what's going on with the client, and almost for a coach to be an open vessel,
Mm.
just a clear vessel for what's going on with the client. And even though you may disagree with I think some of the things they're talking about, you move forward. Now, what happens if it becomes a situation where it goes so against your own ethical belief system that you say, I can't work with this client?
Mm.
What pushes somebody to that point? If this is what you're asking,
No, it's a good
yeah,
viewpoint because I have a whole other thing.
yeah,
But no,
I,
I'm listening. Yeah.
I have one thing. So I don't know. I think you make a choice.
Mhm.
If what is happening with them or what they've done butts up against your belief system, your ethical oath, your ethical values, then I, I, this is me. I believe you have to stop and end the relationship if it interferes with how you're going to coach this person.
I agree, and I think it is to it is to your honesty to say, you know what, I don't think this relationship's going to work. And you can say why, or you can say not why, but it's just like, I don't think it's not a good relationship.
Right.
And that's okay. I had the other question I had about that was like, I'm not sure that was a point to share confidentiality. It's like, that is the sacred rule in coaching.
Mhm.
You provide confidential, safe
Right.
space, as they say in their guidelines. You provide that space and it is assumed you'll be confidential. So to share that in front of a group,
Right.
but I just felt it put everyone in an awkward position. This might be something that you drag the trainer aside later and go, look, you know, I just thought it was embarrassing. I thought it was not coaching standards. And I think on a personal level, if it had happened with a client of mine, um, we're so politically divided now, and we're so ethnically divided and all that.
Right.
Like, so you have to decide, where does your personal value stop and where does your profession, expand?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
said so. I just thought it was wrong on all
Mm.
senses. And not that she had the feelings. She's certainly allowed to have whatever feelings she had. And I suspect it might have been a cultural thing, but luckily we didn't get to hear the details. So, but I think it has to be dealt with better. So I thought that was one that I'd always questioned. It's like, should I have done something? What should they
Right.
have done? What? So yeah, that was kind of my example. And
Mm.
as you can see, nothing is clear cut. It's like, wow, who
No,
values
no.
are at the top of the scale. And I think the thing is probably neither. It's like everybody, you have to it's a give and take, a give and take. So there are no values that are more important than someone else's values. So based on the viewpoint.
And then you might just say, at this point, I just don't think it's a fit.
Exactly.
That's just,
And
uh,
that's honoring the profession because the profession is you want to help as much as you can. You want to be as beneficial to your client. And if you can and you're honest enough with yourself, that's great. You're honoring the profession.
I,
Do you have
I
anything?
do actually with a client
Hmm.
about core values. I had a former client that was gay and really wanted to have a child.
Hmm.
And she didn't live in this country. And they went and spoke to people about getting impregnated. And they everywhere they went, they were turned down because they were gay. And she was, believed in her core values. She was very ethical. So in the end, what she did was she took a male friend as her husband, and subsequently was able to get what she wanted, a child. And we talked about it, and it really a lot. She had to lie.
Right.
It went against her core values. However, you know, how far can you push the envelope? And we talked about this with her core values, that she could be comfortable pretending for an end result, which was a child. So she struggled with it a lot
Yeah.
because it went against her core values and being ethical. However, that was the only route for her to have what she wanted. So you question, you know, how far can you push the envelope of core values and still be comfortable, rather than pushing it so far that you're not comfortable.
It's so interesting because it brings up a whole other dilemma also. What happens when two of your core values, family and ethics, collide? It's like, which one wins?
What was the first
Because
one?
obviously family was very important to her.
Yeah, right. Yes.
And then ethics, it's like, oh, but I don't want to lie, cheat, and steal to get what I want. So what happened? What do you do when they collide? How do you decide which one wins?
And we coached around it. We really did, because she struggled with wanting a family and honoring her core values.
Wow. I won't ask you what you came up with. I mean, to the end,
I
she
mean,
got the end result.
she was comfortable enough. We got to look at, again, in the end, she got what she wanted. And she tried every route and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So she had to color outside the line.
Which
And
is something coaches encourage. Think outside the box,
and as we coached around it, she became comfortable and okay with it.
That's a great dilemma. And we could sit here all day and talk about, do the ends justify the means, and that's a question that's centuries and centuries old. So yeah, those are interesting things. I mean, I think of today in current, I don't think it's coming down the pike, but I think in current situations, one is the mask versus no mask. Where does the obligation of the company or the business come? And then later, is it going to be vaccine? Do you have one or don't you? And what about those people who truly are afraid of the vaccine or truly don't believe there's even a thing to be worried about? Who wins? Who wins? And does the public good come in now? I mean, now we're talking a bigger scope. It's like, does the welfare of the country come, the world come in? So what do you do about that?
Oh, I don't know. That's a little above my pay grade.
You think? Yeah, I think it's way up there above everybody's.
To cry and, I mean, I have my own thoughts, but
Sure.
they're my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think when we look at a core competency, this is ICF's core competencies. However, if you push it out into the bigger picture, how does this relate to businesses, to leaders,
Sure, that's it.
for their own ethical standards, that if they are at the top of the food chain as a leader guiding, and if they start with ethical behavior, right? Having integrity, having respect, having good core values, having trust, then it will trickle down to the rest of the organization. So it
Definitely.
starts at the top. If they don't establish that, then it falls apart. It's exactly parallel to and aligned with ICF's core competency of ethical guidelines, ethical practice.
Exactly. And how do you determine that? I mean, I'm thinking, you made me think of the bakers in Middle America, or wherever that is, who refuse to make wedding cakes for gay couples because it's against their core values. So it's like, how do you decide? And I guess, let's both talk about, how do we decide based on our values, at what guides us, and I think it might be for lack of a better word, the 10 commandments. And though there are rules, but then you get to play within the lines, or whatever. I'm not sure what other, that's my religion, but I don't know, but there are guidelines, but you can't definitively say this is right and this is wrong. I think for me, honesty is probably the number one for me. Honesty, and I don't want to pretend coaches or doctors, but do no harm. It's like, don't hurt somebody. Kindness, honesty, and kindness, perhaps. And coming from as clean a place as I can without my prejudice, which is hard. It's hard. If you ask me to coach someone who's totally against everything I believe in, I'm going to have a hard time. I'm going to have a hard time because I
Yeah,
haven't managed to, as you say, the vessel. I haven't managed to clean the vessel out totally yet. But
yeah. And then it becomes, what are your coach's ethical
exactly.
guidelines to
Yeah,
say this isn't going to work? Because no matter what any coach says, you can clear your head, certainly, but we're still human beings,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we still have our own core values, beliefs, ethical guidelines. And as much as you might want to say, oh, I could coach anybody, I'm not sure that's accurate. And
You could coach her, but maybe not well. It's
oh,
like,
right,
yeah,
right. You could pretend to coach them.
exactly.
However, that that goes totally against this core competency,
Yeah.
ethical practice. And you're hurting someone else
hmm
because
Exactly.
you're probably not going to coach them in a way they deserve to be coached, and let them go to somebody else that has the ability to do that.
Yeah. I think it's honesty to your client, honesty to yourself.
Mhm.
And I think you have to, if you can, I don't know if you can. No, I do know you can. I used to think, no, you can't. But you have to hone your own intuition. You have to really listen to what your gut is telling you. And if it's going, oh, I can't imagine me doing this, then you got to be honest with that. And you might want to say, okay, I have a client and I can't imagine. And then I might want to contact you and go, Terry, coach me through this, because something's not right here. I think rather than say, oh my God, no, these people are impossible to coach. And, I've had clients who are so negative that you go, oh my God, why are you bothering me? But it's like, um, I think you have to take that as an opportunity to learn and expand yourself, and clean out your vessel some more. I love that analogy you made. Yeah, clean out the vessel. A little spring cleaning or something.
Yeah, yes, it makes a lot of sense, and it seems so straightforward, and yet it is and it isn't. I mean, I did have a client, it was a woman, that My gut told me not to take her on as a client,
Mhm.
my intuition, but I did. I've had a few of those. And I could tell this was going to end badly. It, I could see her harming me
Oh,
um, on many levels. And luckily, we both agreed to agree to separate. I think that was one that I just had to leave the coaching arrangement because I could see she could have hurt me in a way I wasn't prepared
mhm.
to to have that happen. And that was scary.
I applaud you for listening to your first you want to kick yourself for not listening to your
Right,
original instinct, but
right.
then it's like, okay, wait, now I really have to listen.
Oh,
So good for you.
yeah, and our gut is always right. We just don't act on it all the time.
I mean, sometimes we don't hear it, or sometimes we rationalize,
Right.
it's gut
Well,
versus
I'm
brain.
a coach. I can help them.
Exactly. If I
This
can't
was
help it.
years ago. I've
And
kind of,
in fault with the coaching schools, they tell you you can coach anybody. Maybe
I
not.
don't
Or
think
like I
so.
said, you can coach them, but then you're not going to do any good, or you're gonna hurt
Right,
yourself, like you said.
right.
So yeah.
So this is a very good number one core competency. Again, setting the foundation. This
Yeah,
is what everything is built on. So
exactly.
if it's a shaky or a cracked foundation, then I don't think you could move forward because it
No,
will be a shaky relationship.
your house is going to crumble, and
Right, exactly,
you're gonna have to keep
exactly,
constantly repairing it, which is good.
exactly.
We have less than a minute
Oh
left.
my gosh.
I know it's like when you get into this, it's so
Wow.
fascinating. But
Well,
so I'm the thing I'm taking away is to thine own self be true. It's like you got to listen to yourself
mhm,
first and
right,
then see what you can do with yourself.
exactly.
You got
Listen to your own voice.
half a minute. What are you taking away?
Oh, I'm taking away listening to my intuition. And
Uh,
on that note, this has
yeah.
been great. Thank you, Laurie.
It
And
has been probing, and like we didn't promise answers because we knew we wouldn't have
right,
any, but it's just something to really think about. And I love what you said. Trust yourself, trust your intuition, because it's there to help you.
thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Yes, yes. So we'll be back. We'll be back next month, and we'll take
Right.
on the second core competency. So thank you, Terry. It's always
Thank you,
great to see
Laurie. It's
you.
always great.
And, take care,
Bye.
everybody.